How are we doing, Seahawks fans? Welcome in to another edition of Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Happy to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we will give you an updated look at free agent targets for your Seattle Seahawks. I got 10 names I want to get to. I understand that cap space is kind of limited right now. The Seahawks have already made some big moves. But with that said, we still have some names that the Seahawks could still be potentially interested in adding. We'll go over all of that coming up in a moment. Before we do, if you think Seattle has had a great offseason so far, and it's really just getting started, we still got the draft coming up here in a few weeks, and there's plenty going on. If you think they've had a great offseason to this point, go ahead and like today's video. If you don't think that they've had a great offseason so far, comment and tell me why. Let me know. Like the video if you think it's been a great offseason. If not, comment and tell me why, and we'll get started with today's show. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over 10 names, and we are going to focus on positions of need for Seattle, of needs they need to address, right? Now, with that said, they could address these in the draft, but let's go ahead and at least scour the potential free agents that are out there for Seattle. Let's start with Dalton Risner at the offensive guard spot for Denver, is where he was at this past year. And obviously the Seahawks have a good track record of bringing in guys from Denver, how things have worked on that front. Obviously, Dre'Mont Jones, and we know about the infamous trade last year. With that said, the Seahawks have a need on the offensive guard spot. Risner could be that guy. Has, I think, a lot of potential. Hasn't reached his ceiling just yet. And you look at what he brings to the table, a very good leader. He's very vocal. I think he could be a good fit potentially for the Seattle Seahawks team, and still a relatively young guy as well. On that front. A couple more names. David Edwards, already within the division with the Los Angeles Rams. He's another possibility, although we didn't see a whole lot of David Edwards last year. Just in 4 games played, he allowed 3 sacks. That wasn't too great. So I think if you're looking at David Edwards, you're hoping that you can get him on the cheap, on some type of discount of some sorts potentially. Got plenty more names to get to here in just a second. Before we do, get your votes in our pinned comment today. Name a player you think the Seahawks should sign. Who comes to mind that you'd like to see in a Seahawks uniform in 2023 that's already sitting out there in free agency? Let me know in the comment section. Name a player you'd like to see in a Seahawks uniform in 2023. Let me know in the comment section below. Let's go to the corner spot now. Now, here's where things get interesting for Seattle, right? Yes, you bring back Mike Jackson. Julian Love is around, but he might be playing safety. He might be playing nickel, but we don't know. And so with that said, you're still weighing your options. Not a priority, the corner position, but there are some good names potentially, starting with Rock Ya-Sin. And what I like about Rock Ya-Sin is that he is, a no-fly zone type corner. You already got the ball hawk in Tariq Woolen that's getting all the interceptions, right? Tied for the league lead. Rock Ya-Sin could be a good counter to that, of the no-fly zone type approach. And he's still very young, started his career with the Colts, spent last year with the Raiders. I like what he potentially brings to the table. Would love to have him on my team. Marcus Peters, also another option. Peters has had a very good career at this point. Started in Kansas City, then, of course, went on to play with the Rams and the Ravens, and he's been very good to this point. But he has missed a lot of games as of late. Last year he played in 13 games, had 1 interception, 6 pass breakups, and 47 tackles. If he can stay healthy, I think Marcus Peters still can be a very solid number 2 in this league as far as I'm concerned. Marcus Peters would be interesting. And then what about the return of Shaq Griffin? Can I intrigue you with that possibility of bringing Shaquille Griffin back to Seattle? Remember about Shaq, this is a guy that started his career in Seattle, ultimately goes to Jacksonville, and we've seen him be a Pro Bowl caliber corner in the past. But kind of like what we talked about with Marcus Peters is that he's dealt with injuries, that he hasn't necessarily been consistently available. But comparing him to Marcus Peters, the upside for Shaq is he's still relatively young at this point. You'd be getting a younger player as opposed to Marcus Peters. So something to keep in mind there. Should the Seahawks bring back Shaquille Griffin? What do you think about that possibility? If you like it, go ahead and type Y for yes. If you hate it, type in for no. What do you think? Should the Seahawks bring back Shaquille Griffin? Y for yes, in for no. Let me know in the comment section below. Folks, we are covering free agency like no one else is. Yesterday, we did our live show that we do each and every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and it was a palooza. I mean, it was just bonkers. And I got to tell you, you need to subscribe to the channel, not only so you get the latest happenings on your favorite team, but so you could know when we go live. If the Seahawks make a pretty decent signing of some sorts, we're going to drop whatever we're doing. We're going to make sure we go live and bring you the latest coverage, and we're going to party, and we're going to have a good time here on the channel. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and join the family here on Seahawks Today. You'll be glad you did. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. YouTube.com/SeahawksTV to subscribe today for free. Now, the linebacker position, you already brought in Devin Bush, but with Jordan Brooks, with question marks about when he is going to be able to come back, you're going to need more than just Devin Bush. Now, you might turn to the draft for that, but with that said, what about pairing up Devin Bush with his former teammate, Myles Jack? That could be a possibility. 104 tackles this past year, 3 tackles for loss. The two are very familiar with each other. That could be a possibility for Seattle. Another name, you might have heard of him, a guy by the name of Bobby Wagner, who spent last year for the LA Rams. You catch my drift there, Snowplow? Bobby Wagner would just be awesome for Seattle. We've talked about him a lot on this channel for obvious reasons and everything that comes with that. Still playing at an incredibly high level with what he did this past year in Los Angeles. 140 tackles, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. Even with a new scheme, leaving Seattle and everything, he still was just great this past year and proved that he's still one of the best in the league. And he was durable. He wasn't dealing with major injuries this past year with the LA Rams. Even at his older age, he still could be dependable and be counted upon. So I think you would love Bobby to be here, but when we talk about the dollars and cents, does it make sense for Seattle to make that type of move, to try to move players around, to try to open up that cap space? They might not have the flexibility to do so, but it would solve a big need that the Seahawks have at that position. I think most of us would agree. Moving on from Bobby Wagner was a mistake last offseason, considering how well he still played in Los Angeles and how depleted and how broken that linebacker position looked for Seattle this past year. Bobby would be an awesome addition. Just don't know if the money is going to quite work for that. If you want Bobby Wagner back in Seattle, here's what I need you to do. I want you to get as loud as you can in that comment section, and I want to get Bobby's attention. I want to get Bobby's attention. I want to get John Schneider and Pete Carroll's attention, and I want them to know that the 12s want Bobby Wagner back in Seattle. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to spam 54 in the comments, put as many in there as possible, and we're going to make sure John Schneider, we're going to make sure Pete Carroll, we're going to make sure Bobby Wagner, that they know that we want Bobby back in Seattle. Spam 54 in the comments. Let's go. Now, the last big position of need is the number 3 receiver spot. You already have 2 great receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but trying to find that number 3rd option. DJ Chark maybe doesn't want to be a wide receiver 3, but DJ Chark, I think, would be awesome to have if you could potentially bring him in. I think he might more so be looking to see if there's anywhere out there he could be a 1 or 2, but you look at what DJ Chark brings to the table. In 11 games last year, 502 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, if you will bring back what you have in Kenneth Walker and Geno Smith and Tyler Lockett and DK, and you add DJ Chark to the mix, and if you can improve that O-line, I mean, you're talking about, what, scoring 30-plus points a game? It'd be unreal if you could find a way to bring DJ Chark in. Nelson Agholor might be a more realistic fit to be your number 3 receiver. I like Nelson Agholor. I think he's gotten a bad rap personally from his days with Las Vegas, then going to New England. I think Nelson Agholor still has something. I know last year he was held to 31 catches and 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, but I still feel like Nelson Agholor's got something left in the tank at this point. And this far into free agency, his price tag might be pretty cheap. I'd take him over Marquise Goodwin anyway. Last one on the list. This one might be a big reach, but we threw him on there anyway, is Odell Beckham Jr. And OBJ, it doesn't sound like has had much conversations with the Seahawks at all in this free agency session, but you can't talk about free agent wide receivers without talking about Odell Beckham. We would be doing you a disservice if we at least didn't bring up Odell Beckham. He says that he's looking for not $20 million, but he doesn't want to settle for $4 million either. It's going to be a little bit more than that. And we've seen what OBJ can do, the difference maker he can be with what he was for the Rams when they won that Super Bowl. They would not have won it without him. So OBJ, I like OBJ. I'd love to have him here. That might be a reach, but we at least got to talk about it, right? Should the Seahawks sign Odell Beckham? If they get the opportunity to do so, if this comes out of left field, should they do it? Here's what I need you to do to end today's show. If you want OBJ, type OBJ. If you don't want OBJ, type no BJ. If you want OBJ in Seattle, type OBJ. If you don't want OBJ, type no BJ. Simple as that. You can also interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. Find me there. I'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today. Thanks for joining us.